breathtaking. Sweet Spot Live was thought-provoking and enlightening, standing ovations begging for more. Please, more. It was a great night. So back by popular demand, it's Sweet Spot Live with Angelique Francis. Get your tickets right now at themiracleinglewood.com. That's themiracleinglewood.com. We'll see you in the sweet spot.
First things first.
Things first, it's the DU General, Money B. I'ma put you up on the schedule. 6 to 9, 8 weekdays, not too unserious. We got a lot to talk about, so much to pedal through. Unapologetically progressive. Tune to KBLA 1580 to get the mess. We're your ancestors' favorite radio station. First black on talk radio, left side of the nation. Me and Dominique DiPrima go way back. Tag Smiley making sure the station stays black. Discussing all the issues in our community. We're hosted black and brown and others find unity. So let's talk about it. Maybe we can improve it. Digital underground, always down with the movement. So we tune in. The first things first with the queen of Black Talk Radio, Dominique DiPrima. Go sis.
First things first.
KBLA Talk 1580. Good morning and God bless. I'm Dominique DiPrima. This show is called First Things First, and my first thing today and every day, giving thanks, giving praises, asking for blessings from the Most High, asking for the blessings of the ancestors and the elders, and getting it going. And as usual, we do have a lot going on this Thursday. Hour one, we look local. Hour two, we go national, international, and beyond. In the third hour, we do a deep dive. But today, as we have been doing since the election, there's plenty of space left in the schedule for you to weigh in, mostly in hour 2 and 3. So, let's get into it. I'm really excited to have back in the space one of our premier scholars worldwide. He's the author of over 100 books and scholarly articles. He is the holder of the Moore's Professorship in History at University of Houston. And you can find him on YouTube. He's got lectures on YouTube. You can find his books wherever you buy books. And if you don't buy books, you can still find them on Amazon and at your favorite black bookstore. Dr. Gerald Horne, good morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for coming back. I feel like we're in a totally different era than last time we talked, which was only a couple weeks ago.
You are absolutely correct. And I hope, above all, that our leadership recognizes this. What is particularly soul-crushing is the response to the Trump victory from some of our erstwhile friends on the left. I'm thinking of Senator Bernie Sanders, for example, of Vermont, who blamed the Trump victory on what he calls, quote, identity politics, unquote. Now, this is an ambiguous term. I'm not really sure what it means. But oftentimes when it's invoked, it points to Black Lives Matter. It points to so-called critical race theory, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, wokeness, et cetera. And what's striking is that it mirrors the critique from the right. And in fact, the Secretary of Defense designate, the Fox News host Pete Hegseth,
Yikes,
has been slated to purge so-called woke generals, starting with C.Q. Brown, a black man who was the top military man. And what's remarkable there is that how is it that the community that voted most heavily against Mr. Trump is blamed for Mr. Trump's victory? This is befuddling. Not only that, but why is it coming from Senator Sanders, of all people? That shows you the trouble we're in right now.
Wow. Okay, well, the I guess the viral clip of Senator Sanders is him talking about how the Democratic Party does not have a program, platform, or pitch to the working class, which that I kind of agree with. For some reason, I feel like the Democrats are afraid to say working class. They always want to say middle class. They don't want to say poor. They don't want to say working class. But as far as identity politics, to me, all politics are identity politics.
Well, not only that, if identity politics means anything, it has to encompass Israel, for example, where Senator Sanders used to live as a young man. I mean, here you have an exclusivist state where political rights are based upon an exclusive ethno-religious identity. But I've never heard anybody invoke Israel as being an identity politics state. And with regard to the working class question, Senator Sanders is 83 years old. That means that he lived through the Red Scare, which was a bipartisan effort to purge the labor movement of radicals and the most staunch defenders of working class interests, which has led to the present crisis. And in fact, the Trump base, the Trump working class base, they are co-authors of their own misfortune because they oftentimes supported the Red Scare. In fact, if you go back and dig into the record, you'll find Senator Sanders backed a good deal of the Red Scare. I mean, for example, part of the Red Scare was making this deal with China on an anti-Soviet basis, and in return, China got massive foreign direct investment, which has led to this juggernaut that is challenging U.S. primacy all over the globe. Well, guess what? Who was the U.S. ambassador to China at the time when that policy was at its apex? It was Leonard Woodcock, the former leader of the United Auto Workers, for example. So there's a lot of so-called revisionist history taking place, and Senator Sanders really should know better.
Wow, that's quite eye-opening. What a way to start our day. You know, I was thinking about that because a lot of folks are depressed. A lot of people are very scared, and we've been doing a lot of open phones and just talking. And one of the things I thought about was exactly that, McCarthyism, you know, Plessy, Ferguson. I think about the Dred Scott decision. I'm thinking of times in our nation, you know, the internment of Japanese Americans in camps. I feel like we've been through some really dark times in this country in terms of repression and authoritarian-like environments, and somehow we've gotten through them. Do you find any comfort in that, Dr. Horne, or no?
Yes and no. I mean, here's the thing. I've been proposing, as have others, that an immediate priority should be to stop the mass deportation, particularly of hundreds of thousands of Haitians, sending them back to an island of chaos in the Caribbean. To that end, I proposed, and others have suggested, that we hold a conference either in Ottawa, Canada, or in Havana, Cuba. Of course, Senator Marco Rubio, the erstwhile Cuban being Secretary of State designate, he's obviously going to have it in for the island of Cuba, and that a major agenda item be stopping deportation of these Haitians, and that we have it in Ottawa, for example, so that you can rally the international community. The problem is, I doubt if the NAACP would be interested in such a proposal, even though they would probably agree that we're in a state of emergency right now. But it's difficult right now for people to think outside of the box, particularly our leaders, when the house is on fire.
Yeah. Well, it feels like there's also another issue, which is that many Black people, African Americans, do feel that there's a competition between migrants and Black Americans. And, you know, in fact, I can read you part of a letter I got from a longtime listener named Jason. Writes to me, you know, the old-fashioned way with stamps. And he says, I'm so glad that Trump won the election fair and square, and that finally America will be great again, especially for Black America. There will be more available and affordable housing, jobs, and business opportunities once immigrants are gone, and our neighborhoods will come back to the Black people once again. Progressive policies don't work, and thank God this nightmare will finally be over once and for all. And he's black. I mean, obviously.
Well, I have news for Jason. The stocks involved with the prison industrial complex are going through the roof. I think I mentioned that the last time I was on your program.
Yep.
And guess what? After the Haitians and the Mexicans are deported, these detention centers probably will not be torn down. And who might be the next occupants of these detention centers? If you look at the broad sweep of U.S. history, as I have been trying to do in my own work, there has been this strain of trying to get rid of the black population of the United States of America. Not only that, but people like myself are considering migrating to Canada, for example. Now, we would arrive across the border with ill grace coming from a community that has been sponsoring the routing of refugees in this country while we seek refugee status in Canada. I mean, Jason really needs to put on his thinking cap.
Well, I'm also thinking about, all the times when there were fewer immigrants in this country in our earlier days, and other than the white people, and whether or not we actually had rights, from our enslavement forward. Did we have housing? Did we have great jobs and high-paying opportunities then? I don't, that's not my recollection of history, but you're the historian.
Well, let me return to the point I mentioned earlier. The impending purge of so-called woke generals and military leaders, starting with C.Q. Brown. It's no secret that Mr. Trump would like to use the military for domestic purposes, which in a sense is unconstitutional, but when has that stopped him? And when we charge into the streets complaining about police terror, complaining about the roundup of the Haitians, we'll be facing possibly soldiers, just like we were once facing and still are facing police. And so you can't say on the one hand that this is a state of emergency, that the house is on fire, it's a 5-alarm fire, but on the other hand, act like everything is going to remain the same.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to unpack here, but since we started with the military, or you started talking about the military, it's interesting that there's such a strong anti-DEI immediate agenda put forth by the president-elect, as he has said he will go after colleges and schools that have DEI programs, take their endowments, and then give it to white people who have been harmed by DEI programs, i.e. it's reparations for white people. But at the same time, this Fox News host replacing a 4-star general, if it was the other way around, a white 4-star general being replaced by a black TV host with no management experience, the cries of DEI seems like would be very, very loud.
Well, not only that, CBS News has revealed that Mr. Hexus, the former Fox News host, continuing Fox News host, apparently has ties to white supremacist groups. This is going to be the guy who's head of the entire U.S. military. In his best-selling book, he speaks of so-called liberals as being the enemies within, just as Mr. Trump has.
Yeah.
See, what's going to happen is that Mr. Trump is not going to be able to satisfy his base. Food prices will continue to go up, as will inflation, particularly if he executes his ill-considered tariff program. But they're going to have to look for scapegoats. They're not going to blame Mr. Trump, and they're going to blame the usual scapegoats, particularly after the immigrants are ousted, which will be us.
Yeah. Talking with Dr. Gerald Horne, and there's a lot to unpack. I mean, we had a great conversation a couple weeks ago. What about if Trump wins? Even though I really didn't think that he would. So get into that a little bit. And I want to get your thoughts about, these picks and, these choices and what they're really saying and what we should be preparing for. based on your historical analysis. Of course, Dr. Gerald Horne is my guest, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. Are you an entrepreneur looking to take your business to new heights? KBLA Talk 1580 is your partner in success. Every day, we celebrate and elevate Black-owned businesses across our community. Our KBLA SMB Marketplace currently features The Cookie Dip, Badass Bakes, Hair Concoction, Higher Education Accreditation Consulting, LACC Radiology Technology Department, and Malik Books. Your business deserves to be heard. Let KBLA Talk 1580 amplify your voice and connect you with our powerful community of listeners. Email smb@kbla1580.com today. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Roll Charmin ultra strong when you drop in the beat. It cleans with way less effort on your seat. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Okay. Charmin flows extra strong from the road. Your butt hella clean while you're sitting on the bowl. Yeah, it's all you need for that bathroom groove. Get you in and out without nothing to prove.
Charmin Ultra Strong cleans better so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities and sports figures, elected leaders and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Ariva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Ariva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now,
talking with Dr. Gerald Horne. And before we dive into some of these sort of mind-bending choices and statements that the president-elect has made, I was referring back to a conversation we had a couple weeks ago before this election, where you said, when we talked about what we can do, the number one thing you said was build up our local power, elect progressive judges and council members and everything from our block club to our state government.
Well, not only that, but I've been heartened to see that Governor Pritzker of Illinois, who happens to be a billionaire, by the way, and is a Democrat, has knocked together an alliance of various Democratic Party governors. I think that the anti-conservative movement, the non-conservative movement, plays better defense. It's better on defense than offense.
Yeah.
And I think we're about to see that exemplified once again. Plus, you have these liberal law professors. They're going to be fighting a kind of guerrilla war in the courts against Mr. Trump. Now, obviously, that's going to be an uphill climb given the conservative leaning of the court, but that'll slow things down. It'll throw sand in the gears. For example, in terms of deportation of these Haitians, for example, it'll be difficult to do it overnight because of litigation. And I think that that's part of the good news.
Yeah. What about like on an individual level, like we were talking about the McCarthy era, and certainly my own family has been targeted by various programs. What individually, how do you survive or navigate these kinds of repressive, authoritarian, new Confederate times?
Well, as you know, there are certain jobs that have a benefit, just like you have health insurance on a job, you can have law insurance. And it may be possible to pay that few dollars a month so that you'll have competent counsel on call in case that you need it. And speaking of competent counsel, I was just able to see the anti-Trump movie, The Apprentice, which you probably heard about.
I did,
and
yeah.
It's worth seeing. It's playing in Los Angeles. It also has a historical lesson that ties into your question, because as this movie tells the story, Donald Trump was shaped by the anti-communist lawyer Roy Cohn, who was a close comrade of the late Senator Joseph McCarthy and was essential in the execution of the Jewish American communists, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, executed by the state for leaking supposed purported secret of the atomic bomb to Moscow. And all of the tactics that you see Mr. Trump exemplifying, according to this movie, come straight from the Roy Cohn playbook. And of course, he was also a closeted gay man who wreaked vengeance on the community from which he sprung. So that sort of movie is also worth perusing as we try to enrich our understanding of the present.
Yeah, we know you're a real movie buff, supporting the Pan-African Film Festival and others. Anything else we need to put on our watch list right now?
Well, I saw soundtrack to a coup d'etat. It'll be opening in L.A. in a few days, in Santa Monica, if I'm not mistaken. And it's about the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, the Congolese leader, killed at the behest of the U.S. authorities circa 1961. The movie ends with a remarkable scene when Black Americans invade the United Nations, the General Assembly, as the U.S. ambassador, Adlai Stevenson, is rationalizing the murder of Patrice Lumumba and start fistfights with the security. It's all on film. It's quite remarkable.
Wow.
And the film also talks about the attempted manipulation of Louis Armstrong, the celebrated singer and band leader and musician who was sent to Congo as a kind of jazz ambassador as a cover for what was about to befall Patrice Lumumba. It's a remarkable documentary. I recommend it highly.
Wow, it sounds fascinating.
It is.
And so you've said get lawyer insurance, which law insurance. I never even knew that was a thing, Dr. Horne. You're talking about considering moving to Canada. People are speaking on moving to other places. Is that a real solution, option? I know many of our Black, folks like James Baldwin spent some time out of this country. Paul Robeson.
Oh, yeah. Frederick Douglass recalled that at the time of the John Brown raid to overthrow slavery by force of arms, 1859, Frederick Douglass was suspected. He fled to Canada, then to the UK, and only came back once the Civil War began. I mean, I think that particularly in Canada, your voice can be amplified to a degree that it won't be amplified in this country. It's no sin to go into exile. The ANC intentionally sent people into exile, for example, like its long-term leader, Oliver Tambo, for whom the Johannesburg airport is now named. He spent decades overseas.
Mm. Well, yeah, I asked that because I don't mean to be too scary, but when we think about the McCarthy era or Japanese American internment, or even people like Leonard Peltier, who's still in prison, Assata Shakur, when you get to authoritarian, fascist, eras or, periods in U.S. history, there's real consequences. People go to jail. People are silenced. They are blacklisted, blackballed, and attacked. And am I being paranoid right now? But, at what point do you say, I got to get out of Dodge? And at what point do you say, I got to stay here and fight?
Well, both are viable options.
Right.
Both can be recommended. But I would say, particularly for black people, we're going to have a target on our backs because Mr. Trump purports to be a Christian, and if he were to ever read the Bible, he would ascertain that the Almighty has this idea that vengeance is mine. Mr. Trump rejects that. He says vengeance is mine. We voted against Mr. Trump 8-2, 9-1 when it comes to black women. We're in the crosshairs right now. And then we have our erstwhile allies like Senator Bernie Sanders and others. It's not just Bernie. I'm just mentioning him because he's the sort of leader of the left. They're blaming us for the Trump victory, even though we voted most heavily against him. And even people to the left of Bernie are blaming us because they're so hostile to DEI and wokeness and critical race theory and
You think it's about, we got under a minute here, but do you think it's about them being critical of it, or do you think it's because they're trying to somehow find cover? I mean, I don't understand that.
I don't understand it either. I mean, objectively, it's ideological backwardness. I mean, take this concept of identity politics. Now, you can make an argument that the Republicans got a lot of mileage out of attacking the trans community. I mean, here in Texas, it seems like every other ad by Ted Cruz was attacking that community. And so if Senator Sanders wanted to say the Democrats need to drop defense of the trans community, well, he should just come out and say it rather than hiding behind this ambiguity of identity politics, for example.
Talking with Dr. Gerald Horne, we got a lot to cover. They're arguing about Matt Gaetz in the YouTube chat, and I love to hear your thoughts when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know from BIN News. Carrie Lake thanked her supporters after losing the Arizona Senate race to Democrat Ruben Gallego. In a social media video, she described her campaign as a movement of love. Despite her defeat, Lake vowed to continue fighting for Arizona. Meta will face trial in an antitrust case brought by the FTC over its acquisition of Instagram and WhatsApp. A federal judge issued an order denying the Mark Zuckerberg-led company's request to drop the case. The FTC previously sued Meta in 2020. A man is hospitalized after his prosthetic leg got stuck on the accelerator, causing a high-speed crash in Clay Township, Pennsylvania. His vehicle hit another car, crashed through a fence, and sped into a field. The severity of his injuries is unknown. And the long-awaited fight between boxing legend Mike Tyson and YouTuber Jake Paul is set to go down on Friday. Netflix will live stream the fight live from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Topping off a dessert or swirling it onto hot cocoa, Reddi-wip is here to whip up some holiday cheer. Reddi-wip is made with real cream, so pick up a can or two. Reddi-wip.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
LeBron James continues to be one of the most amazing athletes in the history of sports. At age 39, LeBron became the oldest NBA player to have a triple-double in 3 straight games. LeBron had 35 points, 14 assists, and 12 rebounds last night in the Lakers' 128-123 win over Memphis. In the fourth quarter alone, LeBron sparked the Lakers' comeback with 9 points, 5 assists, and 7 rebounds. The Lakers are 6-0 at home for the first time since 2010. The Clippers lost in Houston last night, 111-103. James Harden was the Clippers' only bright spot with 19 points and 7 assists. Magic Johnson's Washington Commanders are on national TV tonight. The Commanders are at Philadelphia in the NFL's Thursday night matchup, 5 p.m. kickoff on Prime Video. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This season, Chevy brings classic pairings, cookies and milk, mistletoe and kisses, and your holiday plans and a new Chevy. Silverado 1500 gives you power and capability with 430 pound-feet of torque to haul your holiday tree. Equinox EV and the all-new Equinox offer award-winning quality and style to see you through the holiday season. See why Chevy makes everything better and brighter. Chevrolet, together let's drive.
An official message from Medicare.
Couple more minutes and we'll start this month's book club.
You know, I usually love a plot twist, but this year, I'm comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And you gotta make sure your drugs are covered. That's important.
So is saving money.
Review all your options at Medicare.gov. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Martha was ready to switch to a career in IT.
There's always a need for IT specialists, especially with AI coming out and cybersecurity. It's practically recession-proof.
My Computer Career even provides job placement help.
The career specialists, they're very helpful. They care about you as a person. You're not just a number to them. I would recommend My Computer Career wholeheartedly to anyone.
Take the free career evaluation today. Become an IT pro in just months with zero experience at mycomputercareer.edu.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
I occasionally have nerve discomfort in my hands, so the things I love to do...
Let's play something, Grandma.
...became difficult as I got older.
If you have occasional stabbing and burning in your hands and feet, try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use. Say yes to healthy nerves with Nervive Nerve Relief. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why, when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million-plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them, the right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I occasionally have nerve discomfort in my hands, so the things I love to do...
Let's play something, Grandma.
...became difficult as I got older.
If you have occasional stabbing and burning in your hands and feet, try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use. Say yes to healthy nerves with Nervive Nerve Relief. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Okay, so I'm going to speed things up because we do have a lot to cover. Almost don't want to fall into the trap of, talking about all of the president-elect's sort of over-the-top picks, which, as one CNN commentator wrote, were really just high-level trolling meant to get everyone upset. But Matt Gaetz was under investigation, apparently a pedophile, and reportedly a pedophile, and a critical report on him was about to come out in the House of Representatives. They're arguing about whether he resigned because he knows he's going to get confirmed to be Attorney General, or whether he resigned because he was running away from that report or something else.
Well, I think it's probably the latter. He's leaving the House in order to join the Department of Justice so that they can go after the FBI. Chris Wray, who has a couple of years left on his 10-year term, has been displeasing to the Trump base. He's probably on the way out. The FBI is going to be more politicized than it has been in years. Recall the bad old days of J. Edgar Hoover of the 1960s, COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program, assassinations against various black radical leaders, particularly Black Panther leaders. And we haven't even talked about Marco Rubio, the
Little Marco.
Little Marco, who has some scandals in his closet, too. Go back and look at stories from Miami New Times when Marco was a young man, when his brother-in-law was running a drug operation out of the house Marco was living in. Marco said he didn't know anything about this multi-million-dollar operation. It's all very curious.
That is very curious.
I hope that he's asked about it during his confirmation hearings, although I tend to doubt it. And in any case, Mr. Trump, he ran on this platform that he's involved in resolving conflicts internationally, not starting them. And yet we all know that the counter-revolutionary process directed against Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, perhaps even Brazil, will be accelerated under Secretary of State Marco Rubio. So folks need to buckle their seatbelts because we're in for a bumpy ride.
They're saying that he'll easily be confirmed. He's not one of the supposedly more controversial. Look, I hope they all resign seeking seats. Maybe we can get the majority back in Congress, in the House of Representatives. But those are kind of scary points. I want to, before we get sidetracked, there was one other film that's actually opening here in LA that you wanted to direct us to check out.
Well, Steve McQueen, you might recall his 12 Years a Slave,
yes,
where he won an Oscar. Brad Pitt, for example, was in it. Lupita Nyong'o was in it, as I recall. He's of Grenadian ancestry, a black British director. I'm amazed and I marvel at his ability to round up these multi-million-dollar film budgets, which is the case for his latest offering, speaking of Blitz, which deals with the attack on London during World War II by the Nazis, and it's told through the eyes of a black boy. And it's very interesting. And Linton Kwesi Johnson, who is Black Britain's version of Gil Scott-Heron, has a role in it as well. And Steve McQueen, he's a remarkable filmmaker. And I would also give a shout-out to Dahomey, which will also be in L.A. if it's not already. It's a documentary about the repatriation of artifacts, statues from West Africa, the country now known as Benin, stolen by the French at the end of the 19th century. Recall that black Americans brought a lawsuit against the repatriation because they claimed that the leaders of Dahomey at that time, now Benin, were involved in the African slave trade, and so they felt that Benin does not deserve to get these artifacts back. And so, but anyway, it's a very interesting documentary, although keep that latter point in mind if you go see that film.
Yeah, definitely going to see that one. We're going to the Republic of Benin this summer. Looking forward to that.
Oh.
Yeah, along with Nigeria and Ghana. But, okay, so these all of these picks, do you think there's any chance that the fact that they're so completely inexperienced or over the top could actually slow down the Trump agenda? One of my dear relatives said to me, there's no wall yet. Where's the wall? Mexico didn't pay for it. Even though Biden helped, there's still no wall. I mean, is there a chance that the corruption, infighting, and incompetence, we're still waiting for Elon Musk's self-driving car, could slow down some of the things he said he will do?
It's possible. As I said, our movement is better at defense than offense. And so this is really when our movement shines, when it comes time to block the conservatives. We'll see what happens. But in any case, Mr. Trump has a trick up his sleeve. That is to say, recess appointments. That is to say, Matt Gaetz could become acting attorney general for at least a year, perhaps longer, without going through a confirmation process. And Mr. Trump is pushing new Senate Majority Leader, Senator Thune of South Dakota, to pursue recess appointments, to do an in-run around the confirmation process.
Yeah.
So that's something else we need to be concerned about.
I mean, I brought that up with a Republican guest we had on, and of course he denied that, even though Trump has said it. It's stunning to me. The man tells you what he's going to do. No, he's not really going to do tariffs. He's just threatening tariffs. So
Well, Dominic, that's part of the problem. I mean, I think people, I don't think they realize we're in a new era. I mean, I've talked to intelligent people right here in Houston, Texas, who do not believe there will be mass deportations because they say that it'll harm the economy, which it likely will. But I don't think that that'll necessarily block mass deportation. This friend also could not believe that there will be investigations of Nancy Pelosi and
Joe
what
Biden.
Trump calls Biden crime family,
Right.
and Obama's, et cetera. He's going to try to put all of his opponents in jail. I mean, it's clear. People find that hard to believe, though.
Yeah. Even black Republicans who voted for him. Oh, he's not really good. Okay, well, we'll see. But to that point, he has also said he will pardon the January 6th coup attempters. And you were pointing out that there's this book we may want to check out that could inform our outlook on that whole process and how these folks are actually really celebrating right now that they're going to be pardoned and probably compensated.
Well, what's dangerous about the pardons is that it'll put on the streets organized right-wing neo-Nazi stormtroopers, Oath Keepers, Proud Boys, 3%ers, the rank and file of the insurrectionists of January 6, 2021. And what we have to worry about is not the offense from the state, from the FBI, from the LAPD. We have to be worried about these vigilante forces who will now be on the streets. And the book you mentioned is entitled Carceral Apartheid by a USC professor by the name of Brittany Friedman. And what it goes into, of course, are California prisons where you have organized neo-Nazi gangs like the Aryan Brotherhood, who oftentimes have ties to prison guards of a similar ideological stripe. Now, I haven't even touched upon the fact that it's been shown that the LA County Sheriff's Office has right-wing gang formations with tattoos and all the rest within their ranks. And so I can understand why people don't want to confront these ugly truths, because it's very frightening and very scary. But I don't think that burying your head in the sand like some sort of latter-day ostrich is going to solve anything.
Yeah, latter-day ostrich. Yeah, I mean, I think you can't fix a problem if you're not willing to acknowledge it. I don't see how we can say we're not in a new era right now. We're talking with Dr. Gerald Horne. He is one of our most noted scholars, historians, and authors. Grab one of his books. It may take you a minute to get through it, but you'll be smarter when you get to the other side. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Join the Black Hollywood Education and Resource Center for a great day in Black Hollywood. Friday, November 15th, 7 p.m. at the Regal LA Live Theaters, downtown Los Angeles. This is the opening night celebration of the 30th annual S.E. Manley African American Short Film Showcase, honoring Deborah Pratt, Lyndon Barrios, Janine Sherman Barrios, Art Sims, Dee Stevens, Gina Lemieux Davis, and Dr. Gloria Zervine. The weekend continues on Saturday, November 16th and November 17th with over 60 short films and industry panels on careers in Hollywood and directors on directing. Get your tickets today at bherc.org or call 323-957-4656. Again, 323-957-4656. See you there. That's bherc.org.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. The Live Your Life organization mentors young women, helping them break negative mindsets and see beyond their surroundings. Through career exposure and hands-on training, they're encouraged to think big, stay focused, and make positive choices. Founded by Nikisha Mama Boo Smith, who transformed her life to become a community leader. Live Your Life is changing lives, but they need your help. They're raising funds to keep their new building open and expand their program. Your donations will support food, clothes, hygiene products, and holiday giveaways. Visit liveyourlife32.com. That's LIVEYOLIFE32.com to help today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Eggs are a staple in our diets, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. With more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties: classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Time flies when you're talking with Dr. Gerald Horne. Let me tell you, I'm one of the smartest people I know. Reads at least 7 newspapers a day, and I always want to run things by him. Got to run this by you real quick before we get to the other list. A lot of us feel like there's something fishy, like maybe Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and the new apartheid tech bros for Trump may have hacked this election, or there may have been some cheating going on. Everything I've read in the media says no, this election was fair and free. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't have any evidence at the moment to suggest that the election was hacked. But what we do know is that if the Republicans had not triumphed, they were going to riot. And we should draw reasonable inferences from the fact that when one side loses, there's a peaceful transfer of power. When the other side loses, they riot and try to stop the peaceful transfer of power. What inferences can you draw from that?
Well, I feel like we're still fighting the Civil War, but I'm not sure where you're going with that.
Well, I think that we need to recognize that this is a settler colonial regime. And just as in Israel, where there's a 20% Arab population, but we know that in order to do anything profound, you need a Jewish majority, not just a simple majority. In order to do anything profound in this country, you need a majority of settler descendants. And the Republican Party now has that majority, which is why they feel that if they lose an election, it's illegitimate, and that they should seize power by any means necessary. The Democrats are more heterogeneous, more diverse, if you like, and so therefore they have to play by the rules.
You point out this book called Vigilante Nation. Somebody's in the chat, I can't see it anymore, saying that those Confederate January 6th folks should keep their head down because there's street justice too that goes the other way. What was the point you were making about Vigilante Nation? Well,
among other things, it talks about SB 8 and here in the state of Texas, which authorizes bounty hunters to go after women who supposedly are somehow seeking to violate the anti-choice laws, the anti-abortion laws. I mean, for example, if an Uber driver is driving a woman passenger who's calling Colorado about going out of state to have an abortion, the Uber driver can bring a lawsuit and recover damages from this woman, for example. Or if you overhear a conversation on the sidewalk to that end, you can do the same thing. It organizes vigilantes to enforce these anti-choice, anti-abortion laws. And of course, you probably heard these stories about women in Texas bleeding to death because they cannot have abortions to save their lives, for example. This is really a dystopian nightmare that's unfolding in these red states in particular. But California should be careful, because I noticed that in those referenda, in many ways, you had a referendum on prison labor, slave labor, and it did not pass muster. That is to say, I guess it's okay to have prison slave labor in the state of California.
Right. Not to mention Prop
Gascon.
36, which is the return of the 3 strikes and the defeat of George Gascon. Yeah, and the defeat of rent control. Wow. Head exploding. So yeah, I mean, we definitely have a strong red core in this state.
For sure. And I think part of the problem, as with the November 5th election, is that many of our voters, for various reasons, do not turn out. They do not come to the polls, which I understand, and in a sense is a form of protest. You know that in Australia there is a fine if you do not go to the polls.
I did not know that. I did not know that. But back to where we started, which is once again, on the left and the right, they're blaming black people. And I have taken some heat for saying, white women did what they always do, which is vote their privilege over their interest, over their allyship, their solidarity. People got mad at me for saying that. There's a lot of back and forth because many folks are mad at Latinos for voting for Trump. Especially, it's hard to say, like, I'm going to be in solidarity with you being deported while you have unleashed, a white supremacist new Confederate regime on the black community.
Well, the only way to slice that Gordian knot, once again, is to internationalize the struggle. We need allies abroad. I mean, here in Texas, for example, in South Texas, where you have counties that are 95% of Mexican origin, it went for Trump, for example.
Right.
In Florida, the Venezuelan community, which is largely comprised of those who flew into Florida, they went for Trump as well. And of course, despite the fact that Venezuelans who walked into the United States are prime targets for being deported. But the Venezuelan Americans in Florida feel that that's them. That's not us, for example.
Yeah.
So, we have
that's why I say we're in the find out section of FAFO, of F around and find out. This is the find out part. But you said earlier off the air that the international organizing is a bright spot in some way. So what did you mean? Go a little deeper there.
Well, Mr. Trump, he's not only alienating half the country, that is to say the United States of America, but he's alienating Canada. He's alienating the European Union. As you know, he's threatening to put tariffs on goods from Canada, which could wreck their economy. He's threatening to put tariffs on, say, exports of French cognac and French luxury goods, which could wreck their economy. He's threatening to put tariffs on goods from Mexico, for example. And Mexico is threatening tit-for-tat responses. And so this opens up opportunities for the anti-Trump majority, and I think it's the majority, in this country to make alliances with these forces abroad. But, of course, the stumbling block is that you need an organizational response. Ideally, it should come from, say, a group like the NAACP, but I don't know if they have enough audacity or gumption to pursue that route. But if they don't, as you know, nature abhors a vacuum, and so hopefully some group will fill that vacuum if the NAACP does not.
Again, there is an article on CNN saying that Trump is just trolling us with these picks. But, Matt Gaetz has advocated doing away with the FBI. Tulsi Gabbard in charge of DNA. She's like 2 clicks away from QAnon to me. These folks definitely indicate Project 2025. They definitely indicate that this person plans to make good on his more extreme pledges. And I agree, we're better in defense. But, you know, what does the average single person do who's not a governor of a state or, you know, the head of the NAACP?
Well, I think the average person needs to press their union to get involved in this struggle, press their church to get involved in this struggle, press their block association to get involved in this struggle, because there's a role for all of us. And I'm optimistic because, as I said, I think that we've shown that we're a good defensive team.
Yeah.
And I think we're...
Well, you know what else? Somebody, and I wish I could scroll up and see who it was, but sometimes oh, here we go. Terry says, it's the mass media that doesn't bring up the election being hacked. So what if Trump gets mad? But the question, aside from, you know, whether or not there was cheating, is it seems like CNN and MSNBC and others are getting ready to fire a whole bunch of folks. So what does that mean? Are we going to see a hard shift to the right? Are we going to just see new talking heads that Drumpf is not mad at yet? Like, what do you make of that?
What I make of that is that it's the same thing that's going to happen, I'm afraid to say, to MSNBC. And I think that MSNBC needs to change their model. No one to the left of liberal is allowed on MSNBC. That's part of the problem. They build bridges to these never-Trump Republicans like Nicole Wallace, like Michael Steele, like Joe Scarborough, but obviously they don't have a base. I mean, it was like building a bridge to Liz Cheney during the presidential race. She doesn't have a base. And so they need to be building a bridge to Dominique DiPrima.
Yes. No, but I feel you, because I always say what they call left is what I call center, and there is no left in this media landscape. What they call right, I call extreme far right. So that's an interesting analysis. Got a little under a minute here. Dr. Gerald Horne, what do you want to leave us with?
Well, you know that Mr. Biden's last foreign trip will not be this week to South America, where he will be shortly, but to Angola, Southwest Africa, the homeland of many Black Americans. And we should realize that he's not going there to pay homage to our ancestors. He's going there to seek leverage against South Africa. And the good news is that it probably won't work because, of course, the United States is upset with South Africa. They brought the case in the International Court of Justice against U.S. ally Israel. They're part of the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, challenging U.S. hegemony. And so the good news is that Southern Africa will remain united despite arm twisting from Washington.
Oh, thank you for ending on a positive note, Dr. Horne. You know, I always appreciate that. And thank you so much for sharing your brain with us this morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, y'all. You know, you got something to say. A lot of people talking about this stuff in the chat. That's what we're doing after news, traffic, and sports. Call me 800-920-1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Carrie Lake thanked her supporters after losing the Arizona Senate race to Democrat Ruben Gallego. In a social media video, she described her campaign as a movement of love. Despite her defeat, Lake vowed to continue fighting for Arizona. Meta will face trial in an antitrust case brought by the FTC over its acquisition of Instagram and WhatsApp. A federal judge, Mike Tyson, and YouTuber Jake Paul is set to go down on Friday. Netflix will live stream the fight.